Well, thank you for reaching out. I'm excited to answer your questions today. So I'll let you go ahead
Yeah.
and get started. Thanks.
So I'd say my first question that I've got is it's in regards to the application process. And I was just going to say, in terms of um obviously like I said about the UK undergrad, like our it's a bit different compared to the States. Do you think that I need more research experience, or do you think the research experience I've got through my dissertation is enough to sort of showcase within my application?
So I would say that it depends on like what exactly, like how rigorous or intensive that research you did for your undergraduate dissertation is. If it um you know, if it involved like starting a research project from start to finish, you were really working
Yeah.
like almost full time on it, like that might work. But I would probably lean towards the side of saying that might be a little bit light on the research side,
Mhm.
because a lot of schools are looking for, a lot of schools actually say that they require or recommend a master's, given
Mm,
that that just gives you more time to build that research experience. Um,
mm,
because that's what PhD programs are looking for. They're looking
yeah,
for research experience and potential, and that potential is sort of based on that experience. But
yeah.
at the same time, I will have to say that like before I applied for my PhD program, I only had one summer of true full-time public health
Okay.
research.
Yeah.
What I did, but that was like a very intense, rigorous, like I published a paper like in that summer. So
Oh
I did
wow.
a lot, in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I really talked it up in my application. And I think
Yeah.
that's why it worked. So
Mhm.
that might work in your case where you could really just like go in detail, talk about all the kind of
Mm,
rigorous research work you did for your dissertation and really like highlight that
yeah.
aspect. Um, but again, it might, I can't guarantee that that will kind of like meet the threshold of what each
Yeah.
program you're applying to is looking for. I was in a master's program, so that was a little bit
Mhm.
different.
Yeah. No, like I appreciate the honesty. Like I'd rather sort of know sort of the scale of what they're looking for in
Yeah,
terms of, because I know they're obviously I mean is what I've interpreted, that they're sort of lenient, that they know you're not going to know everything, but also they want you to have sort of
yeah.
a standard of experience in terms of research.
The thing is I know of a good handful of students who got into PhD programs straight from undergrad.
Okay.
It's not the norm. There's way more people who do a master's and work or do research.
Really?
But there is a small handful of people that I can count that got in straight through from and took
Yeah.
no gap years, nothing. They went straight, they graduated from undergrad, went into a PhD program. Um, or they maybe took 1 year off to like do some research. So
Yeah.
it's not impossible, but it's definitely not the norm.
Okay. So did most people then, like especially on your course, did most people have a master's degree? Yeah.
I would say like 9 people out of 10 either like
Oh
have,
wow.
yeah. It's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a small number.
Yeah.
Maybe like 8 or 9 out of 10, but most
Yeah.
people did. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my advice to people is, and I think you're already thinking this way, which is so great. I don't have to convince you otherwise, is to apply broadly. Because if your
Yeah.
goal is to enter some kind of program next fall, which it sounds like it is, then don't only apply to like Harvard, Columbia, Johns, like, don't only apply to the top PhD programs that are really, really, really selective. Not to say that you aren't a competitive candidate. It's just like a numbers game. You just might not get in
Yeah.
based on numbers. So make sure you're applying to a wide scale or like variety of PhD programs. And the fact that you already acknowledge, like, okay, no, I don't have a master's, maybe applying to a couple master's programs as like your safeties or your backups,
Yeah.
just so that you're not, starting the next academic year without sort of a plan of what to
Yeah.
do next. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want to pigeonhole myself and then, get let down by only just applying for one. So like I said, I'd rather know sort of honestly sort of what people had, and then, still apply, but then go from there in terms of doing a master's and like I said, going forward. obviously talking about the majors and minors, obviously we don't have that in the UK. Would you mind just explaining that a little bit, just to sort of understand it?
You get your
Yeah.
PhD in public health or
Yeah.
population health sciences from a specific department. So for me, Department of Social Behavioral Sciences, and that's kind
Yeah.
of what it is. Your major and minor is just like what you sort of choose to like then further focus on, or your like topic areas of interest.
Because like as well, like I don't know if you mind explaining like credits and things like that, because here we have, you have modules and then you get points from your modules, but is that sort of a similar thing? You just sort
Yeah,
of,
it's like you take a class and then you get a certain numerical credit for it, and then you need a certain number of credits to
yeah.
like finish a part of your degree. Yeah.
Okay. And then are you graded the set? So are you graded like A and B over there, or is it?
So at Harvard, yes, it is a scale of like A to like, yeah, the letter grades.
Yeah.
But when
Okay.
I was at Yale doing my master's, we did honors, high pass, pass fail. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. What was my other question? Oh yeah, I was going to say about postgraduate accommodation. I know this is really random and it's not really about the application, but it's obviously something that I'd have to think about. And I was just thinking, what is the situation with postgraduate accommodation? Do you find it yourself? Does Harvard have some for international students or students in general?
Yeah, so most universities do have like international student oriented housing. You have to apply for it, and any kind of like school affiliated housing is always in high demand. So I would just say like the minute you get in and you might like have an inkling that you're going to want to go, I would put in an application for the housing that's school affiliated. I was like so lucky that I magically got into the school affiliated like apartment complex near the School of Public Health at Harvard, and it was like I was getting the best deal ever for like living in a really nice part of Boston. And that was only because I got, and I don't know how we like, I've only heard rumors that it's so hard to get into this building. And
Yeah.
like I somehow got into the like drawing or the raffle or the whatever, and it worked. And my roommate and I got a room. I don't know. So it can be really hard at some
Yeah.
universities to get that affiliated housing. Because that's one option. Obviously, the most graduate students do find their own off-campus housing, and then that way they can pick which neighborhood they want to live in and be more like everyone has their unique needs of what they like in a living environment. So then they can sort of pick and choose. Do they want to be somewhere more downtown? Do they want to be somewhere more suburban, et cetera? And how close do they want to be by a supermarket or like walking distance, et cetera? Like they care about their little neighborhoods, that stuff. So,
Yeah.
and some schools do have resources that might, or like pages where students will post things about like open listings, et cetera. So there are resources to
Yeah.
finding, and you can always connect with like previous students who are usually very kind and helping out as well.
Yeah. Did you have any favorites of where you lived in Boston?
That subsidized student housing, of course.
Oh, did you stay there
I was living,
the whole
yeah, I was
time?
living in Fenway, which is like right next to where the Red Sox play. So it was
Oh,
very up and coming, nice part of Boston, and I got to live there at a very good deal. And prior to that, I was living all the way in Cambridge, actually, which is it's on the other side of the river, to
nice.
where the School of Public Health is. So I love living in Cambridge. It was cute. I was by the Harvard main campus where all the
Yeah.
cobblestones and brick and all that stuff is. And I my yoga class every day there. It was nice. I liked it as a area, as a neighborhood, but it was just so far to like get from there to campus every day.
I was gonna say, was it public transport you used? Is it buses?
Yeah,
Is it
there's a bus that takes you, a Harvard run shuttle that takes you from Cambridge to the School of Public Health, very direct. But like with
yeah.
any kind of bus, like it's sometimes delayed, it sometimes doesn't show up. And the 9 times out of 10 it would, but the 1 time out of 10, like I'd
It's
be like
when you need
standing
to
in the
be somewhere.
rain, like cold, like oh my God, where's this bus? Like, I want to go home, you know? So,
It's just
uh,
not ideal.
yeah. But I actually miss Boston now that I don't live there anymore. It's a very walkable
Really?
city. I now live
Yeah,
in, yeah, a non-walkable city and it sucks. So,
really.
yeah, I miss being able to like, yeah, like go places more easily instead of taking like a
Yeah.
$50 Uber ride to the other side of town. So,
Oh
yeah,
my God. That is not fun.
no.
Um, what was my other question that I had? So that was what I was going to ask about the main difference between statement of purpose and your personal statement. Because I don't want to like, do you cross over? Do you kind of keep it really different? Like, how do you sort of go about it? Because I've started writing my statement of purpose, and the way I've taken it is from your website and like, done the bullet points. But obviously when I'm writing my personal statement, there are some sort of bits that cross over, and I just want to know sort of do you, don't you sort of situation.
I've been getting this question a lot. And this is, I think, a new thing that Harvard has been requesting from their students.
Yeah.
uh, is that you not only submit your statement of purpose, which is the traditional kind of like your longer, this is my background, this is my research
Yeah.
experience, this is why I want to come here. And then now they're asking for a shorter personal statement where they're asking you to like kind of discuss your background and diverse
Mm.
experiences.
Yeah.
And that is separate. And what I would say is that there should be a little bit of a thread between the two. Because if
Yeah.
you write two completely different things, like, you know, it's coming from the same person. It
Yeah.
should have a connection. So I
Yeah.
think that your statement of purpose should be a mostly straightforward statement of purpose of your research interests and your career goals. But you should include a little bit about your personal passion and why you want to do that. And
Hmm.
same goes for that personal statement where 90% of it should be like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I've experienced. This is what brought me to where I am today personally. But
Hmm.
then like tie that a little bit, like a couple sentences of like, and this is why I want to pursue higher education, public health research, etc., and kind of make that small thread and do that again in both pieces. I think it's important to connect them just a little bit.
Just a little
So
bit.
it's okay
Yeah.
to have like that, like I said, maybe that 10% overlap, but do make sure your writings don't like have the same sentences appear in both statements. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it's just like, you want to find the balance, I suppose, of what's supposed to be in each. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Try and keep one more academic, I suppose, and then the other, obviously personal. What else did I was gonna say, like, did you have like any like, I know you've obviously been speaking quite extensively like on your YouTube and everything about the application process, but is there any like one like key bit of information or like advice that you'd give whilst applying?
Yes. I've also made videos on this too, but I think my main thing is I really encourage people to connect with professors beforehand,
Yeah.
if possible, just to have a quick conversation about like research, interest, and alignment. Just because having that networking, having that call allows your application to then be sort of like remembered and stand out when like that pile is coming through
Yeah.
as the application. So
Mhm.
I also include information on how to do this in my website, and how to cold email and reach out to ask for these networking calls, which I think are really important. And I think that that was the key because I was able to have at least one good conversation with a professor at each school that I applied to. And I think that was the reason why I did end up getting into those programs, because when I was interviewing, like the people interviewing me had already talked to me. So it was like so
Yeah.
warm, like, so I think that, and then also number two would be writing like a strong personal statement of purpose. You know what I'm like, those two
Yeah.
having a good hook that gets the reader in right away. I talk about that too in some of my videos. Those would be my two main keys. And then getting good reference letters.
In terms of like emailing, do you have to find someone that's like really in line with what you want to research, or is it quite vague that you can sort of, you know, I mean, what I want to go into, it's quite a niche thing to look at, but does it have to be so niche that you'd have to connect to them over that? Because I know obviously as well, like you could potentially ask, or you could propose as well about them being your mentor or whatever, but it's like, how much do you have to align with this professor that you're emailing?
Yeah, I also get this question a lot, and it's a very good one and definitely a important one to consider. And my answer always is the alignment doesn't have to be 100%. And I'm actually a firm believer in this.
Yeah.
So I think there sometimes is a like perception that you and your future or potential advisors research interests or research topics must be perfectly matched in order for them to take you, for you to
Yeah.
succeed, etc. And I actually think that that's a myth. One, because my advisor and we both did work in substance use and tobacco, but that was
Mhm.
kind of like the extent of, our overlap. My
Oh,
research focuses more on like adolescent vaping and cannabis use and school-based interventions. And my advisor's work was more on like, adult smoking cessation, low
yeah.
income housing, etc. And
Oh,
what like I when I was applying to programs, I was just looking to talk to anyone who did any kind of tobacco or substance use research that was similar to
yeah.
me. And that was enough of that kind of like big picture overlap. And then I
Okay.
think after getting into the program at Harvard and having an advisor who did similar work but not exactly the same work was actually beneficial for me, because one, I got to learn about all the work that my advisor did and learn a whole
Yeah.
new sort of field in terms of public health substance use research.
Yeah.
And two, it also encouraged me to go find other mentors, like secondary mentors in the
Yeah.
Harvard community that were doing more adolescent substance use
Okay.
prevention research. That gave me more mentors, more networks, more projects to work on. So that helped me, kind of grow my connections and ultimately made me a better student that way.
Okay, nice. So it
I
made you a bit more expansive then in terms of your research.
Yes. So I would say for you, that it's okay if you have professors that are maybe using the same methods or
Okay.
to examine similar topics, but maybe
Yeah.
not that exact topic.
Yeah.
Totally okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. Um,
And I think the nice thing is in population health and public health, we all kind of have this common goal of like wanting to help people
yeah.
large scale. And I think that
Yeah.
is already enough that already like binds us together, and then so
Yeah.
you just kind of from there find the people who are doing work that's a little bit more similar to you, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same.
And that's a really nice way to put it as well. Like it is an overarching wanting to help on a mass scale. I really like that. Another thing I was going to say is, what is the support like at Harvard? Like it's specifically like in terms of like, mentorship, and like if there's areas where maybe you're a little bit weaker, like do they sort of help, in terms of, not obviously it's all self-devised and you have to put in the work, but is that support there if you needed it?
100%. So I would say that the mentorship at Harvard is great, not just my own advisor, but just other professors in the department that I was in social behavioral sciences that I got to work with and get to know. They're all very supportive. They care about you, your success, your mental health, everything. Like my mentor, my primary advisor, he not only like helped me like stay on track in terms of getting my dissertation done early, but
Oh,
he
nice.
also, yeah, he also just like cared about me and like would ask about my family and like ask about like we'd like just chat and like, he helped me get excused for jury duty or like delay my jury duty, so like little things
Yeah.
like that, like they're there to support you all around, which that was, you know, really great.
Yeah.
Um in terms of resources, in terms of coursework and maybe like methods and that type of stuff. So I went into my program with basically zero quantitative knowledge. I couldn't code anything. I wasn't good at data analysis, like nothing. And so they had so many resources to like, I had like I had a tutor, a paid for tutor. So the school paid for the tutor to tutor me
Yeah.
through my first year's statistics course. There's so many other like kind of like side resources available to help you.
Mm.
Uh, and then there's just like a sense of like community to like my cohort, we all studied together for our doctoral exam, our written exam, which
Yeah.
was great. And then like faculty and would come help support that. So there's a lot of support going all around. And just from what I've seen, even year to year,
Mm.
being in my program, that amount of support has only like grown. So the program is very good at listening to students and listening to their
Yeah.
needs and their complaints. There are a lot of complaints, and they take that in, and they
Yeah.
actually make the program better and more manageable for students.
Okay, nice. Because that's what I was going to say. Is like one thing I was worried about is it you're just going to be thrown completely in the deep end, no support, fight to get to the top, and because I feel like some programs that I've seen and I've like read reviews on it is very much you just kind of go in and you have no support at all. And like I just wanted to get a feel for what the course was sort of like, over the period of how long did you do yours for?
4 years, yeah.
Oh wow, you did it quite quickly.
Well, I did a master's before,
Yeah.
and yeah, I really wanted to be done with.
You
Well,
wanted to check out of education.
I will say that there are some programs that probably are a little more unstructured. And I would say that being a PhD student in general is kind of a little bit more unstructured, especially when you're done with your coursework. Sometimes people do say that they feel like, oh, there's like no one there to really like hold you accountable or do it. Like you're kind of just you kind of are, because you're
Yeah.
doing your PhD. And
Yeah.
you get to decide, you're in control of like your research, your journey, etc. And
Mhm.
some people think that that's like scary, but I love it because I love the flexibility. I love being able to do what I want and on my timeline, etc. So, um, you know, I think that you'll find sort of your balance once you get there.
Is it like I think that's like my next question as well. It's like how easy is it to sort of keep a balance between, obviously work, but also having a personal life? Because
Oh.
like I know a lot of people get very consumed by their PhDs, and it's like as much as, I want to be fully invested, I think it's so important to have the balance. And I was just wondering like how easy did you find it to have a balance throughout your 4 years at Harvard?
So I think that you going in with that mindset is the first step.
Okay.
So you are definitely right in that a lot of people do get lost in, especially the first couple of years when the coursework is heavy and they're expected to teach and do research on top of that and then study for their qualifying exams. It's like, how can you do that with the number of hours you get in a day? And I would say that even in the busiest times of my PhD experience, like when I was taking courses, doing research, teaching, etc., I always still found time to like do the things that I know I cared about for myself outside of school. And
Yeah.
I also have some videos on kind of my tips and tricks for this, but my biggest thing is that like I would like schedule my personal stuff first and then everything else around it. So like for me, I like had to go to a yoga class every day. That was like not just for like fun, like, because sometimes
Yeah.
I would be tired and not want to go, but just for my own personal fitness. I was like, I have to keep that up. So I would be like, okay, I'm going to go every day at like 5 o'clock, after at the end of the school day. And then I wouldn't care even if my assignments were behind. If I was like, I don't care. I'm going to go to that class and then I'll figure it out afterwards. So that was the thing for me, is like scheduling the personal time first and then everything comes around it. And then of course, like if you are like gearing up for a big midterm or something, like, okay, yeah, the day before you might need to like, but in general, on like an average Tuesday, you should stick to your schedule, have a routine, and figure out what times of day you work best in. Like for me,
Yeah.
like I know that like I like getting work done like in the early afternoon or something, you know? So figure that out, figure out when you're optimally like the best in terms of working efficiently, and then plan your day accordingly. And I think the other big thing is just knowing that it's okay to not always be working, and to like to take a weekend off and like spend it with your family. You know, I do that all the time. Even now, I'm about to do that this upcoming weekend. And that is totally okay. And you will not get that far behind just for choosing to do that. You know, you are going to have to do work on the weekends, like there'll be assignments, etc. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but like you will still have time to prioritize family, friends, yourself, your fitness, your health, your sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think when you start sacrificing one, like, your work will inevitably like take a hit. So I just wanted to know sort of like how easy you sort of found it
Yeah.
to sort of
Well, for
balance it
me,
out.
it was it's like a physical block. Like if I just work all day, my brain will just eventually stop functioning. And it's like, you need to go sit on the couch and watch some Bachelor in Paradise and
Yeah,
rest. Like, and then,
absolute
or else,
crash.
yeah, or else my brain just doesn't work anymore. So like, that's another reason why I'm able to keep the work-life balance, is just because like physically, like my body, that's like, it'll
I'll
start.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's important. Definitely. But yeah, thank you for that. What was my other one? That's what I was gonna say is how easy did you find, obviously, like I know, are you at Stanford at the moment?
Yes.
How easy did you sort of find it, finding something after, like, did you go back into research, or are you doing a teaching position, or like, because I know a lot of people do lots of different
Yeah.
tracks after PhD, and I just
Well,
wondered sort of what's
that's
the
a great
easiest.
question. Yeah. So most people do a postdoc or a postdoctoral like
Okay.
fellowship, which is what I'm doing right now, which is
Okay.
almost like an extended training period. I mean, you have your doctorate, but
Yeah.
you're basically given some more protected years to do research, to teach, to continue,
Mhm.
doing some of the work before you move on to your next, professor or whatever job. It doesn't have to be academic. But postdoc just gives you extended training time, and that's what most people do after their PhD. It's pretty
Yeah.
standard here. Um, so yeah, and I basically connected with my old mentor at Stanford, and
Oh,
we had stayed in touch throughout my whole doctoral um training, like my time at Harvard. So like when she knew that I was graduating, we kind of just started talking about, like, is it possible for me to come back as a
yeah.
postdoc? And it worked out. So I'm very grateful for that happening. And yeah, most of my cohort or colleagues, they're doing postdocs, or they
Yeah.
decided that they wanted to do something non-academic, so they're doing a non-academic job, like
Okay.
consulting or working
Yeah.
for like big companies, big healthcare companies, and doing great things. So everyone that I know of does really well after graduating and finds something they're very happy with. And yeah.
I think it's so interesting to see all the different paths that people take. Like, obviously you've gone back into research, and then obviously some people go into corporate or whatever. So with your postdoc, do you carry on doing the research that you were doing, or are you looking at different avenues within it? Like, if you don't mind talking about what you're
Of
doing at the moment.
course. Yeah, so I basically love being a postdoc, because I feel like what I'm basically getting to do now is like when you're in your PhD program, you're on like this huge crunch of like, okay, you need to finish your dissertation to graduate. So you can't propose some like crazy dissertation project that's like super difficult to complete, because like you
Right.
need it to be done, or else you can't
Yeah.
graduate. So now I feel like what I get to do is I get to take everything that I wish I could have done for my dissertation, and I actually get to like write grants and propose that as real projects. Because now I can propose like 3 to 5 year projects, and
Mhm.
try to get like bigger grant funding for it.
Okay.
And that's been really fun, kind of switching gears and being able to think that
Yeah.
way. So yes, I am in a way continuing to research similar topics that I did in grad school, but now I get to do it on a larger scale. I get to write grants about it and think bigger, which is a lot more fun than being constrained to your like, okay, I need this to graduate.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's so.
Well, it's your oyster. Like you can do anything, I suppose, like in
It,
terms of research
it
wise.
really is.
Oh, nice. Are you enjoying it?
Yes. I love
Oh,
my postdoc. I'm having a great time. I truly think this is like, it is like a golden period where I feel like I don't have to do as much like student type work. I'm not TAing a bunch of classes. I really get to just focus on building on the skills that I didn't get to do as much: grant writing, community-based participatory research, et cetera. I get to learn those skills that I may not have had time for during my PhD. So it's only making me a better researcher, which I'm very excited about.
yeah. I was going to say as well, in terms of teaching, sort of, how much did you have to teach whilst you were at Harvard? Like, is it a requirement or is it something you chose to do because it's something you wanted to go into sort of further down
So
the
I
line?
was in a little different situation. When I joined the program, it wasn't required. I only had to teach one semester's worth of a course.
Yeah.
Now it's changed up the format because students get a fifth year of guaranteed funding now at Harvard, in the Harvard program that I was in. So because of that, there is more of a teaching requirement because they're getting that additional year of funding.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really speak to like, so I essentially still did a lot of teaching, but I did it because I wanted the teaching experience and it helped supplement my stipend a little bit. So those were kind of mostly the teaching experience is why I still
Yeah.
spent a lot of time TAing while I was a grad student, even though it wasn't required of me.
Okay. In terms of TAing, are you actually teaching the lecture or are you just more assisting the professor?
So it depends on the course. There are some courses where, you are, I mean, you still are the teaching assistant, so you're never going to be teaching the course, but like for some courses when I had taught them, when I had TA'd for like a second year, then like the professor would be like, okay, do you want to actually like teach one of the sessions? So they'd give me more responsibility with like
Yeah.
each year that I was like a TA. So that was really nice to see my growth year to year TAing the same courses. Um, and, I just made it very aware to the professors that I was helping that, I'm like, I'm doing this because I want to gain teaching experience and work on my teaching skills. So please give me more than just like grading and administrative duties. So if you're upfront about sort of your passion and your goals for teaching,
Yeah.
then the professor in charge of that course will be more than glad to hand you a little bit more kind of like
Yeah.
responsibilities.
Okay, nice. What else did I think that's everything. I think
Wow,
that's
you
all the
had
questions I've got. Yeah.
so efficient.
And I wrote all of them down because I was like, I've been thinking about it all week. I was like, what did I want to ask? So I was like, I made sure to write it all down. But yeah, no, I think
We
that's
have one of the winning qualities, which is making a list and sticking
I
to
love a
it.
list.
I know, exactly. That's how I function everything.
A
I
list
love
and a post-it note, and you can't go wrong.
I love it. My lists are all virtual, but same idea.
Yeah.
I literally can't live without them. So it's great.
Obviously, they're the only way to function. Like, I don't know how people, my brain would just, everything would fly away. Like, I need a list to sort of, it's either whether it's on my notes app, it's on Notion, it's on a piece of paper. There's always a list going somewhere.
Or like for me, I'm just forgetful. If I don't write something down,
Yeah.
like in a minute will disappear. And I'm like, oh my God, what was it that I just thought of? So like it's
Yeah.
kind of ridiculous. Sometimes I'll be like in the middle of a workout or something or doing yoga. This is so
Yeah.
bad. To be more mindful when you're doing yoga. And I'll be like, oh my God, I forgot to like throw my laundry or do something like random like
Yeah.
that. And I'll like get up and grab a post-it and like write it down and like throw it out to the side. I'm like, okay, I'll deal with that after this like yoga
Oh my
session.
God, there's countless times in the gym. It's like, oh my God, I need to do that quickly. Right. or it's when you get an idea and you're like in the middle of it and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, actually, no, I need to write that down. I can't lose that.
No, that actually happens to me quite a bit too, especially with us research-minded people. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes when you're at the most calm moments, like,
Mhm.
when you're not sitting in front of your computer or
Yeah.
not at your desk, that you come up with some of like the most kind of like novel
Some of the
ideas.
best ideas,
And
I
then it's
think.
like, oh my God, I have to write that down or else I'm gonna forget. So yeah, that definitely happens when I'm doing yoga too sometimes. So that's funny.
Honestly, I think like one of like the avenues in my dissertation, like when I knew that I wanted to switch a part of it was literally whilst I was in the gym and I was like, oh my God, I need to write that down. I need to go back to the library and start writing it. But
Well,
yeah, no,
these
it's
are
great.
great qualities of a doctoral student. So I'm glad that you're
Oh, thank you.
sounds like you have the passion, the drive, and I'm really excited for you. I'm totally here every step of the way if you have any other questions, and happy to
Yeah.
help.
No, I think that was everything. I think I've got everything, I needed. But thank you very much for your time and arranging, with the time difference to talk to each other.
Of course. No, thank you and good luck. Like I said, I really can see and hear your passion
Thank you.
through everything. So I only wish you the best.